Happy Friday! Welcome back to Drinking by My Shelf. The footage you're about to see was filmed last December. Literally we're talking like 11 months ago by now. This is for a project that I decided to do at the end of last year, and I put it into my Trello board where I plan out all of my victory videos, that I would probably have this video up by March. Lol. I'm not going to introduce it. I will let past Emma, optimistic, ambitious past Emma, do that.
Happy Friday and welcome back to Drinking by My Shelf. It's me breaking the space-time continuum again. I am filming this back in December of last year because I am starting another video project suggested to me by Laura Abbd. She has given me so many great ideas. I still have another video coming out suggested by her, so thank you so much, Laura, for your amazing list of ideas. This is revisiting old favourite 5-star reads and seeing if they hold up. And what if I just don't like them anymore? Is it going to ruin all of my happy memories of them? It's very stressful. I'm feeling very stressed. So over the course of my life, I have obviously loved a lot of books. So it was pretty hard to narrow down, but I have gone through my list and I have picked 5 pretty random books, quite a random selection. But these are all books that I remember adoring at very different times in my life. Some of them are like childhood books and some of them are just like 5 years ago books. But I definitely have not read them since and don't really remember if I will still like them. So, oh my god, I'm actually so scared. The books I have chosen are number 1, Inkheart by Cornelia Funk. Funky? Is it like an Arrested Development thing? Let's see if I can find it. This was very much a childhood favourite, so who knows if I will still like it now. But I remember being so hooked on this book. And I really want to get that magic back. Will it still translate? Oh, here we go. The first edition. That's the one I remember. Oh, I could get it so much cheaper if I get the shitty cover though. How to choose. No, I really don't like that cover. It's got like a photo of a girl's face on it. No offense whoever designed that cover. So I'm gonna get the Kindle edition. Oh, you know what? The Kindle is even more expensive. I'm just gonna get this ugly cheap one. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. I found a nice one, a used library book. I'm getting that one. Phew, that was a long process. Okay, that was just book 1, jeez. Okay, the next book on this list is Noughts and Crosses by Mallory Blackman. So this one I read as a probably 12-year-old, and I remember thinking it was so powerful and so clever. And I've wanted to reread this one for a while actually, because I just remember it completely blew me away. It was probably the first book about racism that I read at that age, and it was pretty sensational. And I read the first one, and then I got the second 2 in the trilogy, and I remember reading books 2 and 3 all in one night. Like I literally just stayed up and read both books in one go, and then morning came around and I was just like dazed, and I'd never done that before. So I'm hoping I'm going to find this one just as captivating the second time round. Ooh! Fancy new cover. It's added to the basket. Okay, book number 3, and I'm going chronologically through when I first read these ones. So this one is when I am most nervous of all of them, because this is one of my favourite books of all time. So I read it as a teenager for the first time. I was probably 16, 17. I wrote my English coursework on it. I've already got it, don't have to buy it. It's out of shop up there. I'll go and get it. It is Our Bodies by Evelyn Waugh. And this is good because this gives me a chance to actually read this edition. I bought this just because I love the book so much, but I've never reread it from this edition. And it's very beautiful and yellow, and I love yellow things. But I am so scared because I loved this book so much. I still consider it like my favourite book. When people ask me what my favourite book is, I still say this. What if I don't love it anymore? Ooh, so scary. Okay, that's number 3 on the list. Number 4 I read for the first time when I was at university. And that I don't have a copy of for some bizarre reason, even though I adored it. This is one I have talked about on this channel before. I will link to my Just Some Bloody Good Books video where I talked about just books I love, and that was in there. I've only read it once, but when I read it, it changed my life. Like literally, this book changed my life. It changed my way of thinking about the world, which is such a rare and special and amazing thing for a book to do. But a book can only really do that once. So I wonder what it's going to be like rereading it now that it already had this amazing, profound impact on me. Will it now fall flat? I might find that I just feel nothing for it because it already kind of served its purpose in my life. God, Emma, you're such a pretentious twat. Okay, let's get it. 268, that's not bad. Added to basket. And finally, the most recent book on this list is The Notable Brain of Maximilian Ponder, and that one again I do have. That is here by J.W. Ironmonger. This also was in my Just Some Bloody Good Books video now that I think about it, and this is just completely bizarre. It's about this young man who on his 21st birthday shuts himself away and decides that his project is he's going to write down everything he knows, every memory he has, and it takes him decades and decades and decades. And we meet this situation after he has died and spent his whole life since his 21st birthday trying to finish this project. So let's hope it can work its magic on me again. So I've got 3 books on the way in the post, 2 books waiting for me here to read, and I will see you guys in probably about May, whenever this is that you're watching it, when I finally managed to read them all.
Look what's arrived! I fucked it! This is the least smooth opening ever. Ooh, okay, this one I didn't even tell you guys about. I just ordered this because I have wanted to read it for ages. But, ta-da! Noughts and Crosses, ready for my great reread of 2019.
Yay! I was excited for this one. I'm excited just to own it because I can't believe I didn't own it, but I'm nervous for my reread in case I don't love it as much as I remember. Yay!
Did I even do any of these yet? It is like the second half of April. I don't believe that I have picked up any of these books since I ordered them all in January. But I'm going to climb into bed right now and I'm going to read Noughts and Crosses until I fall asleep, which might be very soon because I have quite an early start tomorrow. So classic me, I forgot that I was supposed to be vlogging this, but here are my thoughts when I'm nearly finished. I'm really enjoying it. It is really good, you know, it's as good as I remembered, but I've just got towards the end, there are a few bits I'm having a bit of an issue with. I guess this is spoilers. Sorry, this is spoilers. Most of you will already have read this, but skip ahead if you haven't and don't want spoilers. So the scene where Callum and Seffi have sex when she gets pregnant is like super problematic. Like, it's portrayed as if it's consensual sex, but there's a massive power imbalance because he has kidnapped her. But in terms of the portrayal of race and racism, obviously it's great. It's really, really great, and especially this book is like 17, 18 years old now, and I remember feeling like it was really groundbreaking at the time. I would have been 10 reading it, and I don't think I would have read anything quite like that before. So it's been really fun going back into this world, just other than my few little issues. I finished it. Oh my god, such an intense ending. It's so sad. And like, now I know there's a trilogy. When I first read this was just the end. I remember being devastated. I'm now gonna have to Google exactly what happens in the rest of the trilogy. I think there's 4 books actually. I think I only ever read 3 of them. I don't know when the 4th one came out, but I now feel like I need to know what happens, because I can't quite remember. I have all these like vague memories, but I need to get the full story. But yeah, that was really good. So that was a fun experiment in my rereading old faves. Wouldn't say I loved it as much as I did when I was younger, but that's because when I was younger it felt like totally groundbreaking. But I really, really enjoyed revisiting this one. Literally forever not following through on this video idea. So let's pick another of my old favourites. How many months has it been this time since the last one? Don't even ask me, I can't even deal. And I only seem to remember to film these when I'm getting into bed. So I am now rereading this one. You will already have seen some of the following footage because basically I'm reading this one for the Book Junkie Trials readathon. The prompt is like to read an indulgent book, so reread an old favourite. That's what I'm doing. But what I haven't told people in that video is that it's also part of this secret video. So I may just reuse some of this footage. I loved this one just as much as I remembered. I read that so quickly, just could not put it down. It is every bit as delightful and special as I remembered it. The ending is a lot sadder than I remembered though. Or rather, like, it just doesn't... I remember what happened at the end, but I remembered it being like, there being more after the sad stuff happens, if that makes sense. And actually it's like quite abrupt. But yeah, it's really, really powerful and I loved it. I keep putting off reading these because, as you know, I'm doing balancing the books and these books don't count on my TBR because they're books I've already read. So I keep being like, nope, don't have time to read them right now. I've still got to read like 3 more off my TBR if I don't have to give away any books. But the thing is, if I keep doing that, I'll just literally never read these. So while this does mean I'm sacrificing the time that I need to get my balancing the books numbers in order, I can't just keep putting this off until I'm 85. So, and I do really want to reread this book. I loved it so much the first time, so fingers crossed I love it again. This book is actually a little hard to get into this time around. I mean, I'm not very far in yet, but I'm glad that I read it before and I remember how much I loved it, so that is pushing me to keep going.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have been hooked by this so far.
Okay, let's see if I can get properly stuck into this one today. Fingers crossed, because I really want to love this one as much as I remembered. Okay, well, I guess I got my wish. I'm just over halfway through and I'm getting so much more into this one now. It's still like stranger than I remembered and slower than I remembered, but it's just like so compelling, and the oddness of it like really sucks you in. So yeah, I am really enjoying it now. So I'm off on a work trip this morning, so I'm going to be spending about 4.5 hours on a train by myself in total. Maybe I should bring a backup book, because I feel like I might actually finish this one in that time. Well, it's lucky I brought my spare book, because I did finish this perfectly in just one leg of the journey. And I really liked it in the end. It took a while to get into. It probably wouldn't be a 5-star for me now, it would be a 4, because I think the 5-star originally came from the premise. It's just so interesting. But it's a slower moving book and an odder book than I remembered. But I really liked it, and the ending is really strong. Just had a lovely day at the beach. Now I've got a longer journey home. Alright, let's get this show back on the road. Time to reread another of my favourite books. So this one I'm feeling a little hesitant about. This is Inkheart by Cornelia Funke? I don't know if I'm just pronouncing that the Arrested Development way, or if that's actually the right way. This is a book that I absolutely loved when I was much younger. I read it once and just completely fell in love with it. It was like one of the first times I remember being so gripped by a book. I tried rereading it maybe 8 years ago and just couldn't get into it at all, because it is like a children's fantasy book, which isn't something I read now. But I'm gonna give it another go and see if I can recapture some of that magic that I discovered when I was, I don't know how old, like 7, 8? Let's see. So looking at the publication date for this, I was definitely not 7 when I read this, because I was already 13 by the time it even came out. So I must have been a lot older than I thought I was when I read this. Anyway, I only started the first few pages, but it's sweet so far. I'm gonna actually get into it now. I don't remember seeing this movie. Okay, so I've read like a third of Inkheart, and it is really sweet and I could keep going, but I was reading it in bed last night and I realised I'm just not captivated by it. Like, I've got the gist, I remember what was really fun about it when I was younger, but it's not my thing to read now. Like, it is a children's adventure fantasy book, which just like isn't really my scene anymore. So I've decided to stop reading this one. It's the first of these books that I've DNF'd, so I don't feel too bad. And I guess that was part of the experiment, was to see whether 5-star books from my past would still captivate me the same way now. And so far, they all pretty much have. Like, some of them I haven't liked as much as the first time, but I still really got the same kind of things out of them. Whereas this one, oh, dropping it. Inkheart, I just don't think I'm going to get the same kind of joy out of that I did. So Inkheart, I'm Loving You and Leaving You, which means I just have one book left, and this is the one that I'm the most nervous about, Vile Bodies, because this, I still, when somebody asks me, what's your favourite book, I say Vile Bodies by Evelyn Waugh, even though the last time I read it was probably 6 or 7 years ago, so I really hope I still love it. Okay, Emma, let's just do this. Let's just finish off my rereading 5-star books video. So I'm actually down at my parents' house for the weekend, so I'm not with my books, but I was browsing their bookshelves and saw that they have a copy of Vile Bodies by Evelyn Waugh. So I'm going to start reading this one here. I won't steal it from them, so I'll have to find something else to do on the train, but then when I get home I can switch back to my lovely yellow copy that I've showed off to you before. I'm feeling really genuinely nervous about this one, because this is still the book I tell people is my favourite book, but I haven't read it for so many years that I hope it's still my favourite book, or at least I hope it's still a 5-star read. Okay, I'm ready for the day. Let's get reading. So this is so funny, I hadn't registered, but this is actually my copy from school. So you can see it's got like my little scribblings in the margins and stuff. Very helpful, thanks past Emma. So many of the lines from this I recognise so much. I feel like I just know them off by heart. Partly because I did write an essay on this book for my AS level coursework, I think it was. So obviously like you learn those quotes. But also because I've just read this book so many times and I was so obsessed with it. And me and my friend Holly just completely loved it. And we used to quote bits from each other all the time. So yeah, I just keep coming across lines and being like, oh my god, I used to say this all the time like 10 years ago. I just got to my favourite line, the one that always makes me cry, where basically in this book they just like never show emotion about anything, and then there's just this one bit where the main girl lets herself be sad and says to the boy, "It's awful to think that I shall probably never, as long as I live, see you dancing like that again, all by yourself." And then that's just the end of the chapter, and then they never express emotion again. I love this book. I am steaming through it. I think I'm going to finish this so fast I won't even get a chance to read it from my lovely new yellow copy that I bought myself. It's coming up time for me to take my train, so I'm going to download the audiobook of Vile Bodies so that I can keep listening to it on my journey. Okay, Okay, I am home and reunited with my beautiful edition of this book. Listening to the audiobook was a weird experience. At first I really didn't like it because much as I love this book, I also love the film version, Bright Young Things. I've seen that like 100 times, and so while reading the book myself, I was reading their lines like in the actors' voices. I could hear the voices so well. So suddenly hearing some other guy read the audiobook was like, what are you doing? That's not how they say that line. I did then get into the swing of it and then really enjoyed it. I mean, it's just such a brilliant book. But I'm now reunited with this. I've never actually read it from this edition before. I bought this one like 3 or 4 years ago and haven't read it in that time. So I'm a little more than halfway through now, but this is where I'm going to pick up. I hadn't even taken off the dust jacket before, but I just did. And it's green! My favourite colour! And so I finally got to the end of my project rereading 5-star books. And I had, spread slowly over the course of 11 months, a lot of fun with this project. With the exception of Inkheart, which I DNF'd because it's just no longer the type of book I like to read, I genuinely really enjoyed rereading all of these other books. When I came to rate them at the end of reading them this time round, I gave these two a 4, Maximilian Ponder and Noughts and Crosses, and then I gave Varbodies and The Perks of Being a Wallflower a 5 again. But I was thinking about it, so I finished Varbodies last night and I was thinking about it today. Yes, by the way, I'm still wearing the dress that I was wearing yesterday. I just bought it and I really like it, so sue me, I'm wearing it 2 days in a row. I was thinking about these two as 5-star reads and whether if I read them for the first time today I would give them 5 stars. And honestly, that's obviously an impossible question to answer because I don't know how I'd feel. But I kind of suspect that I wouldn't. I absolutely loved both of these, but I think, so let's take them one by one. The Perks of Being a Wallflower, this book meant so much to me the first time I read it. It just like, I always talk about it as one of these books that actually changes your life. Like, it really changed my perspective on things. And I think it came into my life exactly when I needed it and kind of just spoke to all the things that I was feeling. So rereading it brought back all of those memories and that nostalgia and that amazing feeling that I'd got when I first read it. So I brought all of that back and it felt like I was reliving that. But where I am in my life now, I don't know that this book would have spoken to me in the same way. I still would have thought, wow, what a fantastic book, because it's brilliant, but it wouldn't have been as life-changing for me at this stage of my life. So it's really hard to separate whether or not that would still be a 5-star read for me, or just a 4-star read that I really loved. And then the same with Varbodies. I mean, this one, it's even harder to tell how I felt because I have read this book so many times. Not for a long time, up until yesterday, but I used to read it on repeat, and me and my friend at school were obsessed with it, and we watched the movie a lot, and I studied it at school, so I had to read it over and over again for that. And then I wrote another essay on it at uni, so I read it over and over again for that, and I feel like I know so many of the quotes in this off by heart. And so reading it yesterday, and I did read it all in one day, that's how much I loved it. It was such a fun experience because it was just revisiting these lines I know, and I was listening, I was kind of reading the lines in the voices of the actors from the film, or I was kind of reading them in the voices that me and my friend used to put on when we were talking about them at school. So the whole thing was like this nostalgia trip, which means that it's basically impossible for me to separate. Would I have given this book 5 stars if I picked it up for the first time yesterday? It definitely would have been at least a 4 because I genuinely do think this is a brilliant book. It's so funny and so moving and so clever. But would it have been a 5-star? I don't know. And the important question with this one is, the reason I was so nervous to read this one and saved it for last is that whenever people ask me what's your favourite book, I always say Varbodies by Evelyn Waugh. And so in rereading it, it was sort of discovering, is this still my favourite book? And obviously favourite book, I mean, I have so many favourite books, so it's kind of just an arbitrary answer that I give anyway. But I think I'm gonna say that yes, I still feel confident saying this is my favourite book. Amongst others, another recent favourite book is Bear Town by Frederick Backman. I say that to people sometimes because I think that book is one that I would recommend to more people. I think it's more relevant to today. It's got really important issues in it. It's really moving. It made me cry, which books almost never do. So possibly I should switch to calling Bear Town my favourite book. But in terms of, I think when people ask you what's your favourite book, they don't just mean what's a book that you really recommend, or, you know, what's the last great book that you read that I should read. I think when people ask your favourite book, they're actually asking a more personal question. So, you know, I might say Ella Enchanted. That's another one I sometimes say is my favourite book because that was my favourite book when I was growing up. It's obviously not now the book that I think is like the most important book and, you know, the greatest one to recommend to other adults to read. it just is my favourite for nostalgic personal reasons. And I think that that's kind of what people want to know when they ask. So when I say that Vile Bodies is my favourite book, I mean, yes, that I think it's a fantastic book, but also that it is so personal to me and so entwined with so many of the memories of my life, and I can give them all of those reasons, and so them asking what's your favourite book actually gets a more personal answer. That was a very rambly way of saying I still love this book. I still really enjoyed all of these books. I think if I had to put them in order, so Inkheart was the one that I DNF'd, just because it is very much a, you know, children's fantasy book, and that's not who I am anymore. So that one at the bottom. Then I will put Maximilian Ponder. This, when I first read it, just like absolutely blew me away. Whereas this time round, it was a bit slower, it was a bit harder to get into. Still really enjoyable, but, you know, not a 5-star read. Then I will put Noughts and Crosses, which I can't remember actually, because this all happened so long ago. I can't remember what I said in the vlog when I was filming it, but I really, really enjoyed this book. It was absolutely groundbreaking when it came out, and I remember learning so much from it the first time round. There are a few areas in here that I didn't like as much this time round as an adult. Some things about the relationship between Callum and Seffi seemed a little bit less than consensual, which I had problems with. So, you know, this came out in 2001. In 2019, we now have more issues that we talk about and that we would be really careful about in young adult books. So, not to make that excuse like it's of its time, but it is of its time, and it's an incredible piece of work of its time. Not a perfect book for me, but a brilliant one. That would be another 4-star. Then The Perks of Being a Wallflower, because this really is still just as delightful to read, even if it isn't life-changing for me personally anymore. And then I am going to put Vile Bodies at the top and say that it's still my favourite book. So thanks to Laura Abbd for that suggestion. I still am working on one more suggestion that you gave me that I also started working on back in December. So honestly, who knows when that will come out? Maybe like 2022. New Year's resolution, get better at following through on my projects. So give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button below for new videos every week. See you next time.